Hi, and thank you for slipping some time with me today. In this episode, we're going to continue on with this 1998 Mitsubishi Eclipse refresh. It's getting into a bit of restoration in some of it as well. Not that it was in really bad shape, and you can tell that from other videos as well, but I wanted to make it perfect. So what I've done so far, I've done a lot so far, but what I've done in the last few episodes is I've torn apart the rear suspension and all the undercarriage and the fuel tanks and all that, and then I redid them, made them perfect, and then I'm reassembling them. And what I've got all around me is a whole bunch of parts that I refreshed, renewed, made great again, made right again. And we're going to continue on with the next process of that now that they're all done. It was a lot of effort put into making these all new again. I didn't bore you with all the sandblasting and the painting of it, but I think you can get the idea by all the pieces that are lying around. Just to show you how many pieces and components and what you're up against if you ever do this, because people don't realize it until they get into it, how many components, pieces there are just to a suspension. And if you want to restore it, refresh it, what it's going to take to do that based on the number of pieces. So come along with me in the video and we'll count along the way with all the pieces. You'll be surprised what the answer is. Maybe some of you that have done this before, might not be. Even if you've done it before, you've probably done it not realizing all the things you've touched. And this is going to wake you up a little bit just how many pieces there are. So count along with me on that. And with that, let's get busy and put this baby back together. I think I'm going to start with this rear differential. I'm going to put some new axle seals in. It's always good to do. I planned that from the beginning. I had these sealed off for painting, also when I cleaned it up. We're going to put in OEM seals. I recommend that. There are some good jobbers out there, but you can't go wrong with the actual Mitsubishi ones, so you can still get them. I recommend them. There's the part number, MD707184. And I believe this is the same for the first generation and the second generation. I think you might want to double check that, but I believe they are. For those of you that have the seal puller, the little tool that goes in there, great for you. I actually don't have one, and I use an appropriate screwdriver and just work away on that. It seems to work okay, which is exactly why I don't have the tool. I have a lot of tools, but I've just never done that one. I should probably get one. Just so as I pry on this, I'm gonna, because I want to protect the finish on here, I am going to do just put some electrical tape on the screwdriver where it pars on, so it doesn't leave any damage on the paint because it's refreshed. And why do all that work and then screw it up again? All right. There we go. That was pretty easy. We'll do the next one. I'm going to clean any little dirt that might be in there. And then I like to just make sure they are the right one, and in fact they are. You can always double check by taking the actual axle and seeing how it fits. It should fit. Yeah, it fits. Shouldn't do that dry, by the way. You should actually put an oil barrier on there before you put it in. And that's already two pieces that I've had to put together, and I really haven't even got started. I normally will take a little bit of the oil that's in there and just put it on the outside just to help. It not only helps seal it, but it helps it slide in a bit too. You don't need a lot, just a little bit. And then I make sure that also the outside is as well got oil in it. Hey, Anything that's 12 millimeters or less in bolts or hardware, I am replacing. I don't have any that are 14 millimeter, and there's only like 3 bolts in this whole thing that are actually 14 millimeter bolts. Width I'm talking about, obviously. And I've cleaned those up anyway, and they look fine after cleaning them up, but brand new hardware everywhere else. So next I'm going to put the lower arms on both sides. And a little bit of what I'm doing here is I'm just putting a few things in right now that are hard to get at if this subframe assembly is in the car. And it's just to get those bolts because of the fuel tank in. For example, this really long bolt. I think, if I remember right, it's pretty hard to get out because the gas tank's in the way unless you drop this assembly. So I'm basically doing those components that are hard to get in after the fact if you've put the subframe in already. And these lower arms are going to be the last part of that, and then we can tuck this back in the car. Another key thing is I'm not going to tighten everything up until I've got everything put together. So that's another key thing that I'm doing as well, because he's got to move around a little bit, and then I can tighten it up, and I can get at this when it's in there. So I was right. If you can see this bolt, it would have never made it out. This is in the way here. So I'm glad I did that ahead of time, and now everything should be good to go to assemble. It's time to put the axle in, and before I do that, I take a little bit of differential fluid, and I take it and I put it around that seal that I replaced, plus I put it around the shaft that goes around, that rides around the seal as well, just to give it a little bit, again, help seal it as well as slide in and not damage anything. And these just pop in if you do it right. Just like that. It's in. Let's do the next one. That one's in too. I got my new bearing and hub assemblies here. And remember I said I was going to see if I don't have to put this in immediately so I can have an easier time at putting the parking brake drum assembly in there. And I can't do that, and I wasn't thinking right. So this kind of call it a dust cover or whatever that goes on this assembly here. Well, it needs to be attached before you can put that parking brake assembly on. So to attach that, you got to put that on, and then it bolts down with the hub. So can't do that. I'll have to do it the old-fashioned way, which won't be too bad. Just thought I'd maybe make it easier, but you can't do that. So I'll start putting this back together now. 192. That was the parts count on this suspension. So if you're ever taking a suspension apart for this car, and probably most of them out there, piece by piece, every bit, you're looking at probably a couple hundred pieces. That's not including the brakes at all. I haven't done the brakes yet. So there's a lot of pieces. So if you want to refresh it and renew it, that's how many pieces you are going to try and refresh. Now I did count all the hardware, all the bolts, all the washers as well, because I replaced most of them, and if I didn't replace them, which was only a couple, I did refresh them as well to make them look new. So you are handling all of those components. So it's no small feat if you are restoring or refreshing a car, because that's just the suspension alone. I really find it rewarding, as I've said before, because look at it. It's a beautiful thing now, and all new, all looking new, all is new pretty much for all intents and purposes. So that is awesome. You may have noticed that in the video stream, the numbers may have jumped up. It looked like a little high compared to what you were seeing, and that's because I counted things that you did see on the video at the time that I already did, or I duplicated on the other side and didn't show you that side. So I did count things. It wasn't like I was just adding numbers, but I didn't want to bore you, or I didn't video everything as well. So that was the part count. I'm going to say 192. If anything, I might have been a little shy on that, counting every little bit, but I think we're pretty close in that number. So a couple hundred pieces. And like I said, I still got the brakes to do. And so that's attaching to this yet. So it just gives you an idea of what you're up against if you want to do something like this. And it takes a lot of time just to make it all put back together compared if you're just slapping it together doing a job as far as you're placing a hub or any suspension component in comparison when you're trying to make it. I am sure it adds 10 times the amount of work if you're trying to refresh it compared to if you're just dismantling it to replace a part. But again, now it's worth it and it's all done and it looks beautiful, doesn't it? So because that took me all of this week now, that's where I'm going to stop this video. And on the next video coming up, I hope to finish all this up. I should now. I've got the exhaust to put back in. I've got the drive shaft. I've got the brakes and putting that in. And then all the underneath should be done finally. And we can get to the rest of the exterior, which is the bumper covers and all that stuff that's left. And we can take care of that. So I'm looking forward to getting all that done and showing it to you guys. And to make sure that you don't miss that, please subscribe, like and share is always helpful as well. As usual, enjoy every day and always make it right.